taking the time this evening to attend the webinar. I appreciate that you guys are exceptionally busy as it is
Sounds like on its mute.
And as part of your volunteering with your clubs or leagues, whichever organisation you're joining us from today. So thank you very much for that. You are joining our first webinar today. So it's a privilege to have you all on board. Hopefully it will be one of many. We've definitely scheduled in to have at least 10 between now and the remaining part of the season. So content will vary month to month, and we're happy that any requests that you guys have can come into us so we can make sure that the topics are on point and of interest to yourselves out there in the grassroots environment. So our first topic today, as you've all signed up for, is what we stand for. So we're looking today at developing a vision and values for your club or your league, or if you're from a different footballing organisation and you want some more top tips on what to look for when creating a vision and a value and a mission within your club, this is the webinar for you. So just a few introductions. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Danielle Warnes. I'm the National Club Services Manager here at the Football Association. On the call today, we've also got James Mathis from Sporting Assets. And to join us today this evening from a club is Stuart Fuller from Lewes FC. So he will be giving an overview of what Lewes stands for and how they at the club created a vision and value for the club themselves. So just a little bit of housekeeping first and foremost. And the beeps are one of the housekeeping rules. So just to reiterate, those that have recently joined us, if your microphone icon to the right hand side of your name in the participants section is still outlined black, if I could just ask that you tap that for me. So it outlines red, which means that you are muted for now. We will have the opportunity to unmute you towards the end of the webinar, and that will allow you to answer any questions or ask anything of myself, James or Stuart, who's on the call today. But if we could just monitor that and make sure that you're on mute, that would be really, really useful. It also just helps as well ensure that the quality of the recording is clear and concise, and those outside of the webinar today can also get the content without it continually beeping. So if we could just do that, that would be brilliant. As I mentioned right at the beginning, the webinar will be recorded and be available for you guys to review again. And that will be sent by myself via an email tomorrow, so you guys can catch that pretty much hot off the press. And the slides will also be emailed to yourselves as well. So again, you can share them with the relevant committees or individuals within your club that you'd like to share the content with. What we are trying to ask is that any questions that you guys have, to jot them down on a bit of paper at home or to pop them in the chat, which hopefully you can see on the right hand side of your screen. And then we'll open the floor up for discussions at the end of the webinar. That way we just keep the content flowing, the presenters can get out the information they'd like to share with you guys, and then more importantly we can open up a free kind of open plan forum for you guys to discuss and chat and ask ourselves some questions, and more importantly ask each other questions for those that have kind of been through this journey around creating a value and vision at their club. So the running order for today will be myself and James presenting some core content. So for the first half it will be James and I. Then we'll pass over to Stuart from Lewes, who will be giving his overview of the values and vision at Lewes FC and what he's done to date with the support of the club and the volunteers and committee around him. And then, as I said, towards the end of the webinar, the last half an hour, 20 minutes will be an opportunity for you guys to ask questions and share your thoughts and ideas around the topic. So, what are we looking to cover today? So, unpicking the terminology first and foremost, there's a lot of keywords out there that will be popping up throughout the webinar, so it's really good for us to understand actually what do they mean, how do they have relevance within this topic, and more importantly, what ones do you need to know and understand to take away today for you to try and implement in your club. I guess the second one's really, really important. We speak about vision and value and missions all the time, but why? What's the real purpose of needing to implement them within your club environment and outside for the wider world and the community that you're situated in, for them to understand really why you exist and what your vision and your values are as a grassroots club or a grassroots league? Again, we'll be looking at how you can develop them and, more importantly, use them effectively, both internally and externally. As I mentioned, Stuart will come on and give his take of the topic, and then it'll be open discussion for you guys to have a chat. So, why have a vision statement and a set of values? So with any topic, with any kind of beginning of a journey, it's really important to understand the reasons as to why. Why are you doing something? Whether it's creating a value, whether it's setting up a club, whether it's looking at a new pathway or program within your club or league, it's really important for you to understand why. And then it becomes really, really important for you to explain those reasons why and to get other people to understand your why. So why have a vision statement in a club? Well, first and foremost, it gives your club or your league a sense of identity and a sense of purpose. It actually allows you to then be able to express really clearly who you are and what you're trying to do. And that has real value both internally and externally. It helps guide decision making and can be used as a real driver for change. That can be either a change that's been embedded within the club that you'd like to move the club or a league in a different direction, but also it helps the club, volunteers and committee guide a decision that might be quite big. It might be a decision that needs a lot of individuals to come around the table and support with, but actually if you've got a clear set of values that's driven by a vision, then that decision making should be made that little bit easier within your club. It underpins the club's business and activities and provides a clear line of sight between what the club wants to really achieve and actually how it goes about it. So again, it provides that clear drive and that clear direction. And if you ever get lost or your committee members ever get lost, you've always got something to revert back to, just as a check-in point to make sure that you are on that right path and that right direction. Again, it's a really good mechanism for kind of getting existing club members on board with maybe a new thought, maybe a new concept, and just rejuvenating some of maybe the old thoughts that have been in and around the club for a longer period of time. So actually it's a really good way of putting fresh ideas into the club and moving the club potentially in a different direction or a fresh direction if that's where the club would like to be. It can be used as a sales pitch, and I use sales pitch loosely, but it can be used as a driver to not only share the message as to why the club's in existence or what they're looking to do, but it also helps bring people on board with what you're trying to do. If you're very clear about who you are, what your existence is, what purpose you have, and what direction of travel you're going in, it helps bring people along. And by that I mean it helps with recruitment of volunteers, it helps with recruitment of players, and it helps you have an identity within your community. And for many of you out there in the grassroots world, funding is a real big problem, but a real big kind of driver as to support your existence sometimes out there in the community. So again, having that clear vision of who you are and what you're trying to do has real weight when talking to stakeholders and partners around what you're trying to achieve, and more importantly, how you and your values and their values as a potential partner or a stakeholder can combine together, and you can collectively potentially work towards driving to something bigger and better. So I mentioned right at the beginning that the terminology actually can be quite confusing, and there's a lot of terminology out there. So it's really important that first and foremost we understand what does all the words out there around values and missions mean. And you'll see on the screen there, we've pulled out kind of 6 or 7 main key terminologies which are used when talking around values, visions and missions. So first and foremost, the vision is almost like, what do you want to be seen as? What are you being viewed as from an outsider looking in? What's the purpose? Why do you exist? Why does your club exist? Are you there to support the needs of your community? Are you there as a development club? Are you there as a club that is looking to strive to be one of the best competitively. And whatever your purpose is as a club or a league, that's absolutely fine. And defining that makes that even better for individuals, like I mentioned, inside and outside of the club, to be aware of that. Your mission, how are you going to get there? What does your roadmap look like? Do you have milestones in place that are going to help you reach your overall aims and objectives as a club? And then your aims and objectives, led myself on quite nicely there, really is around your short-term, medium-term and long-term goals, and actually the way that you're going to achieve them, and more importantly, what you want to achieve, set by those clear milestones, that clear roadmap of your mission, leading towards your purpose and your vision as a club or a league. To having objectives, so kind of targets and measurable intentions. They can be kind of quantitative, qualitative, they can be specific, or they can be realistic. It just depends what your aims and objectives are and how you want to get there. And then your values. What do you really stand for? What's your core ethics? What's your principles? What cultures do you embed in your club that you would like to embed within your vision and your mission and your purpose? And how do you get other people on board within your club to really kind of drive and take on board the culture that you're trying to set? And this is a really good visual to see it in a structured way. So this is BT, really simple visual way of showing all of that terminology, all of that jargon, and putting it in a real structured, easy to read, easy to share infographic. Now, some of you have probably seen this through full-time work. Some of you have maybe seen this through other webinars in and around the same topic. And it also almost follows the VMO strategy. So those that are aware of it, it's a vision, mission, objectives, strategy and action plan structure. Now, I'm not saying go away today and look more into this in terms of a VMO, but it's a really good way actually of structuring what you're trying to say as a club and what values and vision you're trying to share internally and externally. But again, really nice visual. You can do that in your club, you can do that in your league, you can make it look however you want. But I thought actually that's a really good way to summarize some of that terminology that we were just speaking about. So what does a good vision statement look like? So it's really, I think we've understood actually what all the terminology is out there and kind of understanding that first and foremost. I think we've understood the reasons as to why, but actually what does a good vision statement look like? So it should be clear and concise, easy to read. The BT example we've just had there, 5 or 6 different sections, no more than a few words in each, but it was clear and it was concise. And it had a direction. They knew where they wanted to go. And that being at the forefront of everything that you're trying to encompass in your value and your vision is looking at what's that direction of travel and are we going in the right way. It should definitely include some of your values, and we'll go on to values a little bit later on. As I've mentioned, again, teed myself up, it should be clear and concise, no more than a few sentences. Again, that helps with just it being a snappy, something for people to remember, and it is something that people can relate to. When things get a bit too long and a bit too complicated, it makes it unrelatable and it makes it a real challenge to then try and revert back to what actually your vision is if it becomes kind of too complex. And again, you should be clear about where the vision statement will appear and where it will serve. So the BT example was on their website, so public domain. Your vision could be on your website as well. There's nothing wrong with that. I've seen good examples of club values and club visions on mugs that are given, obviously, when supporters come and get a cup of tea or a cup of coffee. It could be embedded on kits, it could be embedded on players' bags, on handbooks, on parent guides. So there are plenty of ways where a good vision statement can be shared. And like I say, short, sharp, snappy, and that will get people remembering it and, more importantly, talking about your vision. So it's a really good opportunity for us to talk about the FA's vision and what we have. So we have a real clear purpose at the FA, and that's to unite the game and inspire the nation. And that's our overarching vision for the Football Association as a whole. And then within each department, we've got our own kind of mission as such. And our mission in the grassroots leagues and clubs team is to help you guys as our grassroots clubs and leagues be the best places for people to play and enjoy the game. So we have our overarching vision, which is unite the game, inspire the nation. And this is our mission, to try and ensure that you guys, the clubs and the leagues, are the best places for people to play and enjoy the game. And everything we do in terms of our thinking, our strategy, is all based around our mission, to ensure that we help you as grassroots clubs and leagues, provided with the up-to-date services and support mechanisms, so you can go out there and ensure that your clubs and leagues are set up in the best possible way and that you're serving your community in the best possible way. And here are just a few other vision and mission statements that we have out there. James, I think it's probably a really good time to connect you in actually and talk about Sporting Assets, vision and mission, and then I can continue. I don't want to steal your thunder, so do you want to talk a little bit about your vision and mission?
Great, thank you, Danielle, and good evening all. Yeah, hopefully you're not now going to rip apart our vision and mission. We recently kind of went through a little revisit of what we do, and yeah, you know, it might sometimes sound a bit grandiose having a vision. I mean, we're a team of about 10 people, and as Danielle says, it's, you know, actually for us it's still important, even though we might never actually achieve our vision. It's just nice to have something to pitch for and aim for. So for us, our vision is a nation enjoying thriving sporting places open to and led by their local community, which gives us something to aim at. And then the mission just starts to provide a little bit more detail about how we're going to get there. So for us, like, each of those words kind of means something. There's almost a little definition behind each one. So, you know, drive for us means that we're actually kind of pushing the boundaries, trying to get the sporting sector to move in a different direction. So continued development of relevant, resilient and impactful community sports sector. So, you know, relevant means that it's, you know, really led by the communities. They're credible, resilient. They've got to be sustainable. And, you know, the groups have got to have the right capacity to make it happen. Impactful is really thinking about, the wider benefits of sport, you know, and community sports. So we're, you know, particularly working in kind of grassroots rather than elite level. So, you know, we went on a little journey to come up with something for us, you know, and it's something that it does mean something for us, and, you know, we've kind of broken it down. So yeah, that's my organisation, Sporting Assets, and I'll chip in a bit later. Danielle, I'll pass it back.
Cool, brilliant. Thanks, James. So again, it doesn't matter if you're a sporting organisation or if you're a big company. To the right hand side, you've got charities that have a good vision and mission and a direction of travel. So just one that we came across was Mind. So obviously the FA's working in partnership with kind of Heads Up, who also work in partnership with Mind, and they have a really clear vision as well, and that's that they won't give up until everyone experiencing a mental health problem gets both support and respect. So again, it's a really big vision that they want to work towards, similar to like James and Sporting Assets. That's their ultimate end goal, and they'll do everything within their power to try and get closer and closer to that vision. With their mission as Mind, looking to provide advice and support to empower everyone experiencing a mental health problem, and to raise awareness and support services, and to promote the awareness of mental health that's currently out there. So again, it doesn't matter if you're a sporting organisation, doesn't matter if you're a big British telephone internet communication provider, it doesn't matter if you're a charity. There are visions and missions out there, and your clubs and leagues are no different. If you have a vision where you want to get to as a club or a league, then it's definitely worth getting something down on paper and really trying to work towards that. And again, it doesn't matter what part of your journey you are on. If you're a club that's been in existence for 50 years or 1 year, a vision and a mission is absolutely fine. And there's a small case study here from a club in Essex, Bradwell Bay United. So these guys have only been established for less than 1 season, but they've already got a vision in place. And I'm not going to read the whole slide out for you, but one thing that was clear when I was speaking to these guys and reading their values and their vision and mission is that for them, family is crucial. It doesn't matter if you're a player within their club. Yes, you have importance, but actually they're really keen to support the wider player, so the family, the extended family of that player, and really encompass all the support mechanisms that sit around that player. So family for them was crucial in their values and their mission, and they want to support the player, yes, first and foremost, but actually they know how important family is around that player, and trying to be as open and transparent with their family, trying to ensure that opportunities aren't just for those players but are for their family members as well. And that was something that was really kind of strong in their vision and their mission as a club. And their top tip, which I thought was really, really good for a club that's only just been in existence, is that they say to other clubs, really think about what you want to achieve and what makes you stand out as a club. And I like the last bit, don't give up. This can be quite a hard thing to do, to gather the right people around the table, and I know James will talk about that in a little bit more detail later. Yes, there are some really good organisations out there that have pulled together their vision and mission, but it will take a little bit of time. So whatever you do, don't give up along this journey of creating a vision and mission, because it will come. So what makes a good set of values, and more importantly, what do they look like? So it's really important that the values that you set yourselves are a true representation of your club, and again what you're trying to achieve, and the vision and mission and your values should coincide with one another. Your values should really be your enablers to help you strive towards getting towards that vision or completing your mission. It sounds like a bit of a game, completing your mission, but really you need the right tools and the right direction of travel to really help you make them strides towards what your end goal is. Develop them together, and what we mean by that is develop them with as many different people around the table as you can. And again, James will talk about how you do that, but try and get the right representation around the table, whether that be your board, your committee members, the players, the members of your club, the wider community, and really get everyone's thoughts and opinions around what your values should be. And again, ensure that they represent who you are as a club and what you stand for. Think about what they mean and how they could be interpreted. So again, that when we started the slide deck, we looked at the terminology. There's lots of terminology out there, and there's lots of different ways that certain straplines can be taken. So again, be clear on what they mean to you at your club, and then be clear to communicate that to the right people, and that they're interpreted in the right way. Your values can really guide actually your decision making. And again, if you've got a clear vision and you've got a good set of values that will get you to the right places, it should really help your decision making. Certainly when you're in maybe more challenging situations around your committee or around your board, reverting back to your values is a really good way of getting everyone back on track, or at least going in the right direction. Again, are they memorable? Are they easy? Do they form part of a bigger word? Do they form part of something that people will remember? Having those little triggers will really support people buying into what your values are, but more importantly, remembering them and adhering to them when needed. And how can you bring them to life in your club? Again, probably very similar suggestions as I made earlier around actually sharing your vision and your mission. Get them up on posters, get them up on your apps, get them up on your website, so then people really know what you stand for. And here at the FA, we have some really clear values around what we try and ensure that our work and our thinking and our strategy development is all around, and their pride. So that's our kind of main word that's then formed from our 5 values that we have here at the FA. Again, some of you will be familiar with these. through implementations through our grassroots awards. So those that have nominated a volunteer or someone they work alongside, you would have been asked to look at your nomination and ensure that that person that you're putting forward is working towards some of these values that we have at the FA. And again, we're really strong on these values when we're in our strategy meetings or when we're discussing kind of what our next steps are around supporting clubs and grassroots leagues. We're always being brought back to these 5 key principles, 5 key values, and ensuring that we're on track, ensuring that we're progressive, that we're thinking in new ways, we're thinking in ways that are only going to benefit the grassroots community, respectful, that actually we're respectful of each other and also respectful across the game, inclusive, that we champion and ensure that football is for everyone and will remain a game for all, that we're determined, that we are accountable for what we do and accountable for the whole game, but more importantly, determined to make sure that the game is being kind of delivered in the right way. If you remember a few slides back, we looked at what our kind of vision is as a grassroots team, and that's to make sure that we support you in providing the best places for people to play and enjoy the game. And we can only do that by being determined that that is our overall vision and mission, and that's what we're driving and steering towards. And excellence as well, to be the very best, and that can only be sustained really by excellent performance. We've got to continually work towards our values. And like I say, they become really crucial when we're in our meetings. We have to make sure and check in that this is actually what we're delivering against to really help us strive towards our vision. And again, lots of different companies have lots of different values out there. And this is Sport England's one. Again, nice, colourful infographics. They're looking to be collaborative, innovative, inclusive, ambitious, and they're their values, what they try and steer towards when they're looking at sport development and the greater sport in England. So again, some really good values there. Really check in, what are your values at your club? If you don't have any, really good time to start nailing down some, getting the right people around the room to have those discussions. If you do have some, is it worth a refresh? Are you still adhering to them? Do people know about them? Again, some really good questions. There are always going to be different values out there, ones that will fit, ones that might not be suitable for you. So you've got to make sure that whatever values you're looking at are suitable. And more importantly, people understand them. Again, one of the slides earlier mentioned actually, how are they interpreted? So when you look at your values, ask them questions. How are they being interpreted? What do they mean? Are people understanding of them? Do they adhere to them? How are we sharing them? So there's just some things there around the why and the what. So I'm going to pass you over to James, who's going to talk to you about the how, so all around the implementation, and again, getting the right people in the room to hopefully get the right visions and values down on paper. James, over to you.
Great, thanks, Danielle. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. There's a real range of kind of club sizes on this call. So if you could just flick on to the next slide, Danielle, it's kind of, and also probably people on this call, some of which have been through this process and, perhaps got some of the scars from it and perhaps part way through, and others that, almost don't know where to start. So, I'm going to keep it quite simple and straightforward. Just go through a few practical slides, which hopefully will help guide you through. So yeah, the first one really is just it's kind of common sense, but it's just really looking around and thinking about, where do we actually start here? So as always, it's a case of thinking, perhaps not in the case of the perhaps it's rare in the case of the case study we saw earlier, who were a new club from last year. Most clubs have got some degree of history, been around a bit. There might be a change of personnel, and perhaps there were things that already existed and perhaps have got lost. So starting place really is is there anything out there already? And I also say that in terms of in governing documents, and if you're incorporated in your objects of your articles, or perhaps if you're a charity, anything that you know, it might be that you regularly check in with your governing document, but I'd imagine most clubs kind of only go and visit it when there's a problem, perhaps. So, you know, there will probably be something in there around the objects or what you exist to do. And actually, it quite often will be a case that perhaps what it says is outdated. And you know, actually, often it will be quite wordy and legalese, so it won't be the sort of stuff that trips off the tongue and you know might sit on your branding. But at the same time, it is you know something that if someone just came to the club could pick up and look at and in you know it needs to basically be consistent with anything that you do from here on in. So it might be that it gives you some clues as to what to do. It might be that you need to rethink actually the governing document too. Likewise, the business plan. You know, there may have been something that existed at some point. Um, so you know, do you need to reinvent the wheel, or maybe it's more a case of you know taking out the bits that you like and need updating. Um, you know, so it's just thinking back over the history of the club. It's a good place to start. In terms of the period it should cover, again, I think it's different with every club. Some clubs, um, you know, will be moving rapidly, and there'll be big things happening regularly. Perhaps there's I don't know, a real push to get a home, a new facility, or you know, you're rapidly increasing or adding different junior teams, perhaps women's teams. Disability teams, you know, so it might be that, um, or you might be more of a kind of solid set club that has maybe it's got a home already and you kind of pretty consistent in what you offer. So, um, you know, you would think that you'd want a vision that lasted long enough, 5, 10 years, but actually, as I say, if you're a club that is pretty transient in what you're doing, it's growing quickly or it's changing a lot, then you know you just need to be mindful of that, and also obviously think about um, you know what that vision might be and how it could be relevant for a longer period of time. Um, and then yeah, you know the classic kind of clubs within clubs, which I'm sure is the case probably with everyone and every club to a degree. It's just thinking about um, you know perhaps what the club stands for is going to be different, but you know, through different people's eyes who equally care about the club, but perhaps see it from a different angle, whether they're a parent or a player, or you know, more involved with the social side or some of the other activities. So, you know, it's just being mindful about how you include those different opinions and ultimately end up with something that everyone can get behind and feel happy and motivated and inspired to go out and achieve. So if we could have just flick on to the next slide, please, Daniel. So yeah, you know, thinking as I say, it's pretty simple here. I mean, if you're a bigger club, you might do all of these things. Or, you know, if you're just starting and you perhaps or a smaller club, it might be that a few of these or one or two of these things is enough. So, yeah, as I say, think firstly about what you already have. Think about the formal documents. Think about anything that exists, partly as a kind of continuity and out of respect, but partly because you know it needs to be consistent and it might actually give you lots of save you time and give you answers. um, Simple surveys, you know there's plenty of online surveys if people have got good databases and can easily contact people. Then whether the survey is the first thing in the process, it might not be, but there's obviously times where you can survey people and start perhaps fine tuning some of the other work. I'll talk you through a really basic vision workshop that you could deliver at your club in a minute, and then you know for those that are really keen and want to go the extra mile and have got a bit of time on their hands, some people might be familiar with something called theory of change, which is a much more detailed process, which really starts actually with the end goal of what you're trying to achieve. So it might be, I don't know, uh, more young people playing football in a certain area, and then you track back the various outputs and assumptions that go into achieving that goal, and it helps to essentially build up a little plan of action. So we can send on some stuff separately about theory of change, but there's some good examples on the internet for those that really want to go the full hog. So if we just flick on to the next slide, then we'll just go through, really basic kind of simple vision and values workshop. Some people might have already done something like this, and when we get to discussion, that would be good to hear, how you've approached it. But, first up, obviously who you're going to invite. It's very easy to look at the committee, but the committee for different clubs means different things. So if you've got a committee that is representative of perhaps different sections within the club, then that's fine. And of course you need committee members to be there, but there's others that perhaps are outside of that committee: volunteers, coaches, parents, perhaps other people within your network, maybe partners of the club, or people that perhaps could give a slightly different opinion. From perhaps there's some people that are, I don't know, involved in community businesses, or have other relevant skills and knowledge. Perhaps they've been through this kind of process themselves at work, who could help out. But really, thinking about how you can get representation across lots of different parts of the club. As much as this is a real positive thing to do, as we all know, if we exclude someone or a certain group, then it can be time consuming and be a little bit painful. So really think through who should be there to start with. And then in terms of the workshop, some of you and your clubs might be really engaged in this stuff already. You might feel like you've got a clear vision and purpose, perhaps a strong history of volunteers who will kind of, even if it's not written down, kind of feel like what the values are. Perhaps they are written down and they need fine tuning, or others where you're really starting from a blank sheet of paper and brainstorming. But as well as that, it's just thinking through the dynamics of the session. We want an environment where people feel comfortable, feel happy, willing to share thoughts and ideas. So any kind of pre-work that could be done to make sure people feel comfortable in each other's company and can be open and honest about where they want the club to be, obviously makes for a more productive session. Ditto if there is that kind of common bond, or if it's something where they're perhaps different parts of the club are located differently and operate very separately. As I say, what can you do to perhaps introduce people and make them feel comfortable ahead of just getting together for a workshop, so that you get some positive outcomes. More like the basic logistics of when to do it, where what time can people actually feel not panicked. Maybe it's difficult when we're talking about volunteer run football clubs, but we need to find a way to carve out a little bit of time where people can turn the phones off and really think and focus on the task in hand. And also who should lead it. You might naturally look to maybe the chair or whatever, but actually it might be that it suits someone different, perhaps someone perhaps slightly more on the periphery, maybe who can perhaps bring a different opinion, or at least can coordinate the different opinions in a way that they're perhaps not as preconceived. So if you just flick on, sorry, Danielle. So here's a sort of session that you could do. So quick bit on why having the vision. Hopefully people will already be on side with that to start with. But as Daniel said, it's really about what you want the world to look like, and that should inspire people and that should get people excited. and then you kind of work backwards from there. So, we've got in there, what do you want the club to look like in 3 years' time? Could be 5 years' time. So just a case of, depending on how many are in the session, break people up into groups. Just start. What I quite like to do is get a load of post-it notes out, get people to write one thing on a different post-it note, work in little groups so people feel comfortable, and then you should end up with a whole host of content, perhaps on post-it notes, that you can then put to one side, and we'll come back to that in a second. So once you've really brainstormed all the different thoughts and ideas, as someone once said to me, well, you want to create an open environment where every idea is a good idea to start with. So let's just get them all down, and then we can think about prioritizing and wordsmithing a bit later. Then thinking about, in terms of the next part, really thinking about the how you're going to move forward, how you might get to some of these aspirational positions. What are the potential barriers, success factors, which will help that vision. And again, these are all things that again you can start to look at and will help formulate the plan. Kind of concluding and next steps, something that again I quite like to do at one of these sessions is, if you've got lots of post-it notes, let's say, and you go back to the vision and you think about, I don't know, you've got 15 different things written down. You can, it sounds a bit childish, but you could give out a load of stickers to everyone and just get them to just reflect, walk around, look at them all, and just put as many stickers they want on ones that really mean something to them. So you could, if you had, say, 20 stickers each, you could put 20 all on one thing, or you could spread them out evenly. And it's just quite a nice way to start to see which things really start to come through. And it means that if there are one or two dominant people in that room, other people, just by virtue of having a voice by stickering stuff up, can you start to see a visual pattern of what's important. So often just getting that far where you've kind of broken it down and themes are starting to come through, a short list of words is a good result in that first session. Likewise, some of the challenges to move forward, if you've at least captured them, I think that's not a bad place to be after your first little workshop that you've got together. If you just flick to the next slide, please, Danielle. Because I think with this sort of stuff, sometimes it flows naturally and sometimes it doesn't. So it's if you can capture, as I say, some of the themes that have come through, share it with the group, kind of obviously be clear on timelines and how it might develop. But I think it might be that you take that forward in the group and you meet again, and you can then fine tune. It might be that someone or a couple of people try and take the lead and actually turn it into something, or 2 or 3 statements that make sense. Or it might be, as I say, with the survey, this is a good chance to actually go out and survey the members, or different leads within the group start to take some of those ideas and speak to parents, coaches, supporters, whoever else at the club. Then once you get a feel for what really matters, then it's a case of fine tuning, and hopefully, and in the same way you've done that for the vision, you can do that for the values. It's as Danielle said, it's really, values are really what guides the decision making. So pride for the FA, if there's a tough decision, Danielle and her team should be able to reflect on the word pride, think about a big decision and how the words and that should be a guide really for how they'll make a tough decision. And again, I'm sure you'll be able to come up with some similar things yourselves, which will help guide you. So you can follow exactly the same kind of process with values. And then Yeah, and then once you've agreed them, obviously there's all sorts of ways that you can actually just the formulation of those in themselves can be fantastic as a way to recruit new members, deliver new activities, get some promotion, wider community initiatives, and sessions going. So, you know, it should really be a kind of celebration, hopefully, of bringing people together and getting people on a journey. So, yeah, it's just a few little practical ideas. I'm very conscious I need to bring Stuart in because Stuart is always a man that I enjoy listening to and talking to. So I just very quickly say, Stuart Fuller, if you don't know him, is the chair of Lewes FC. I'm sure you've seen a lot of their work, and you know, I'll let Stuart talk through how they've approached what they stand for and some of these topics at Lewes.
Cool. Hi. Thanks, James. Right. I hope everyone can hear me. My name's Stuart Fuller. As James said, I'm the chairman of Lewes FC. I've been at Lewes for 10 years this year, 5. So we've got a pretty robust and developed model for our vision and values. So what I wanted to do is just talk you through very quickly a little bit of background as to how we've come about, and also a couple of the really big guiding principles, because they're very relevant to a couple of things that have come up already. So if I could flick to the next slide, please, Daniel. And then, so this is a quote. This was something that was said to me 10 years ago. Lewes was on the verge of bankruptcy. We'd had 2 winding up orders from the Inland Revenue, and we'd just completed possibly the worst ever season the club had in the Conference Premier, where we were relegated by March. I got involved in that summer, and someone said to me that the biggest problem that you, as in the people taking over Lewes, will have is that you know nothing about football. And the point we made back was, it's because we know nothing about football that this club will be successful. So if we move on to the next slide, our guiding principle is very simple. In anything, in any business, you've either got to get big, you've got to get niche, but you really need to think about how you exit that market. Now, as Lewes Football Club, we're a tiny football club. We currently play at step 7. We can't get big, or so we thought. So therefore, we went niche. And what we decided to do is to take the club back to some of the basics. So if I skip on to the next slide. Our story is very simple. We've been around since 1885. We are 100% community owned. 100 owners, each of whom has 1 share in the club in 26 different countries. Our main core vision is that we are elected to serve the community. So we are at the heart of our community, and the community is at the heart of the club. And that goes through every single thing we do as a business. If I could slip onto the next slide. People know Lewes for a number of reasons, the football club. The first thing we did back 10 years ago is we wanted to reconnect with that local community. And the way we did that was we started producing match posters. And we started producing very eye-catching match posters. Some of our match posters over the last 10 years have been sold in quantities of thousands across the world. Now, all of these were designed in-house, and one of our directors is still responsible for producing these eye-catching posters. So, go on to the next slide, please, Daniel. So, here's just some examples of the ones we've put in place. Now, to us, these are really important because these connect the football club with a wider group, hopefully, than those who are just football fans. And the whole point about what we're trying to do at the Dripping Pan, the home of Lewes, is to bring that community together. Next slide, please. This is the second thing that people tend to know us for. We don't have executive boxes. You know, we're not, but you can rent a beach hut that overlooks our ground, and you can watch the game from a beach hut, get some free food, free drink. it was wasted space. Each of those beach huts cost us 300, 400 pound each. They paid for themselves in their first month. This is us being niche. Nobody else does this. Still, nobody else does this, and it's amazing to me. But this is us saying we're going to be different. We put these up, we get national media attention. People are interested in the club. They come to the club. They spend money at the club. They become owners of the club. They become part of our bigger community. You know, our mission statement is around that community, the heart of the community. Food is, again, very important part of a football match. So therefore, we invested in local produce. We produce local food. You can come to the Dripping Pan. You can have Thai green curry. You can have a new vegan burger that's been produced by a local farmer. We really, really care about what goes into our product, into that match day experience. So to us, the match posters, the food, because at the end of the day, we can't control the 90 minutes on the pitch. And trust me, this season, that's certainly the case. We've won one home game all season, but we're still getting 500-600 people, and people come because they enjoy coming. It's a great setting. They can have a beer still. You can have your food. So to us, one of the really core things, our values, was about that match day experience. Go on to the next slide, please. The other thing we try and do is be different. Again, this is an example of something we try to do for some of our home games in the autumn and winter. Lewes is an interesting town. It has a very strong history with regard to their bonfire societies. And one of the bonfire societies comes and produces this little entrance for the teams. In fact, every single time we have had the torchbearers, we have won. So unfortunately, they don't quite have the same effect on a Saturday. And obviously, there's some health and safety issues, but sometimes we just do it because we're different and we want to be niche. The next slide, please. In 2017, this is where we became big. We became the first football club in the world to pay our men and women the same. We allocate all our club resources equally by gender. So we have the same facilities that are available to our men's team and our women's team. And that got us some headlines. Some people agree with this, some people disagree with this. That's fine. But this is us getting big. This is us saying to the rest of the world, this is what Lewes Football Club is all about. This is our core value. It's about community. It's about equality. And this is what we live by. And you'll see a lot in the press about Lewes and some of the things we say. But at the end of the day, this is about us trying to find that equality as the heart of our principle and our vision. The next slide, please. Our principles. We are the first and only club in the world to allocate resources. We talk about our values, our principles, our stance in equality. We use our pitch hoardings and our front shirt to promote powerful messages. We see football as an enabler of social good, and that's what we try and look for. And that goes for all of our sponsors. It's very interesting. We would rather go without a shirt sponsor if we didn't feel that it aligned with our values than take the money for one. So at the moment, our women's shirt, for example, is not sponsored, and our men's shirt is sponsored by a charity, which I'll come on to in a second. So if we go to the next slide, please. And for the work we've done, we actually won a UN award last year. It was an award that basically celebrated the fact that the club, predominantly the men's section of the club, supported the women's section and everything they do. And we're the first sporting club to ever win that award across the world. So we're quite chuffed about that one. So what's the impact? What's the impact of what we've done? So we have an impact on the pitch. We now have approximately women and girls playing across all of our teams. For those who don't know, our women's team play in the second tier of football, which is the championship. The first year we introduced equality in terms of budget parity. Our men's team finished second at step 8 and were promoted. First time the club have been promoted in over a decade. And we now have the issue of internationals, which causes a problem that we never thought we'd have in terms of logistics of players going off all over the world to play games. That's the impact on the pitch. On the next slide, we have the impact in the community. So we're 100% community owned. We have over 100 volunteers dedicate their time and skills on a match day. 200 boys and girls play for Lewes Juniors. Every single one of those gets to come to any Lewes game free of charge. If they want to be a mascot, they can be a mascot. They can stand and they can walk out with the team. That's no problem. Football therapy, our mental wellbeing teams. We were one of the first clubs, or we pioneered in Sussex the setting up of a mental a football therapy league, which involved clubs from all around the county. And we also set up a football therapy cup that involved 16 clubs from around the country who came down and competed at Lewes. We now have walking football and we have vets football. In terms of impact in the country, the first football club to install solar panels actually in the ground. They're still there and they're owned by they're owned by our owners. So everyone could buy their own panel if they wanted it. We put football versus homophobia barriers around the pitch nearly 10 years ago. We've been quite vocal in terms of FA prize money, and that's generated debate in Parliament. And we were the first football club to put an anti-gambling charity on the front of our shirts. Our men's shirts still wear Gambling with Lives, which is an interesting situation considering we play in the Bet Victor Isthmian Premier League. But again, we felt very strongly. We had no say in that sponsorship deal. However, this is our way of saying what we feel about gambling and football. So finally, we just look at the impact in the world. We have those owners in 25 countries, and they bought into the principles and values of Lewes. We won that award. Our own TV channel generates now about 60,000. And we've got global relationships with some big companies. So last year, Twitter did a campaign before the World Cup in Women in Football, and we were one of the 4 organisations that they chose to promote, which included these huge billboards in Piccadilly Circus. That was quite impressive. The next slide, please. So finally, this is an old adage, and I go back to the get big and get niche. About the 2 young fish swimming together, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, and he nods at them and says, "Morning, boys, how's the water?" And the 2 young fish just swim on for a bit, and then one of them turns to the other and says, "What the hell is water?" The point we're trying to make there is that sometimes we're so engrossed, we're so wrapped up in what's going on around us, that we don't think about the impact we can have in the wider community. So to us, we started off as being niche, and then we found a way to be big. We're quite happy being big and niche. We might not get the results on the pitch all the time, but we know off the pitch we're doing the right thing. And that to us is the most important thing. That goes back being at the heart of the community and the community at the heart of the club. And then just one final slide. This is our people. And I thought I'd put this up because there's been a lot of talk recently about equality in the way that sporting organisations are run. This is our group of directors, and then the 3 pictures right at the bottom, that's our first team management team. So Simon Parker manages our women, and Ross Standard and Tony Code manage the men's team. I'd just like to point out in the middle on the 3rd from the left, at the bottom row, that's Maggie Murphy. Maggie's was one of the inspirations in the women in football movement, and she's a key member of our management team. She's brilliant. And then top in the middle row on the right hand side, some of you may recognise her. That's Claire Rafferty. So former West Ham, former Chelsea, former England Lioness. She joined our board last month. That's our first team squad. So with that, thank you very much.
That was brilliant. Thank you very much for that. Really insightful and really good to hear around what you do at the club. Obviously 10 years of hard work and 10 years of, I guess, lots and lots of discussions, lots and lots of toing and froing, but you were quite clear right at the beginning, I think slide 2, get big, get niche, or get out. And I think that's a really powerful kind of 6 combination of words, really. So thank you very much for sharing. Are you okay to stay on just for another 10 if people have got some questions?
Sure, no problem.
Absolute star. Thank you very much. So that leads me on nicely to open it up really to you guys. So I do appreciate we are 1 minute past 9, but we have got Stuart on the line. You've obviously got James and I. There are another 40 of you on the line that I'm sure have got some questions that you may want to ask or something you'd like to share. So if you'd like to pop your name and your question in the chat, we can open it up to anyone that does have any questions, or we can unmute you if you'd like to kind of speak rather than be hidden by words. So over to you guys, really. Got any questions, pop them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask away.
Maybe while people were waiting, I might just sneak in and ask Stuart one, if that's all right. So, just thinking about what we stand for, you know, obviously Lewes FC's gone through some massive changes over the last 10 years. So, and what you stand for has evolved and changed at the same time. Are there any like top tips or snippets reflecting on what you've done where you think, you know, that really helped us, or I'd do that differently in terms of how, your kind of vision and values have changed?
Oh yeah, I mean our original sort of mission statement changed massively from what we wanted to see and what we wanted to do. I think for us it was the opportunity to sort of challenge the norm, to say, okay, well, why do we do things this way? Why does football do things this way? And so to us, it was also around understanding that we were in a competitive market, a competitive landscape, and our competitive landscape wasn't just only football clubs. It wasn't Brighton and Hove Albion playing in the Premier League 5 miles away. It was the fact we've got a cinema on our doorstep. It was the fact that we've got a shopping street, 5 minutes away. So we had to compete. And we didn't realise that. I don't think many clubs realise that they have to compete every single Saturday with cinemas, with bowling alleys, you name it. So it's about trying to encourage people to get to the clubs and having a real clear vision and values that you can stick by, and having the whole of your volunteers just being on side with that as well.
Stuart, we've got a question coming from Paul. He's asked, during your changes, did you come across any negativity to your approach to changing the club?
Massive amounts. Still get them today. But it's about you have to have convictions in what you believe in and what you think you're doing as a club. And one of the great things about being community owned is anybody can stand on the board. Every year, we have elections. Everyone serves a 3-year term. If anyone wants to stand, they can. And our view is that it's great that if someone has a different view to the other people on the club, brilliant, bring it forward. Let's listen. Let's find out. Because there's no blueprint for us doing the right thing. So yeah, we're all, there's lots of negativity actually, and you need to try and engage with people. You need to try and work through some of those problems. That's the easiest way to do it.
Yes, rather than challenging them or their kind of views as such, it's working with them and trying to understand their point of view and maybe trying to kind of explain your point of view and where you're going as a club. Yeah,
absolutely. That's exactly it.
Brilliant. I've probably got a question. We haven't got too many else come in, and although lots of thanks around kind of your storytelling there. Obviously, it's really difficult to, especially for many of the clubs on the line, Stuart, that are huge in what they operate: boys, girls, males, females, potentially vets, walking football. How do you as a club really share and cascade down your vision and mission and values across all the different sections of your club and with the different volunteers you have on board?
Yeah, so we've got quite a tight knit group. We have some of the coaches are shared across teams, but we also encourage all of the junior teams, for instance, to come to watch games. We do prize giving twice a season, where the first team managers will go, some of the players will go. Our manager and our players are often in schools doing presentations as well. So we want to be really visible in the local community. As I say, we're 5 miles, 5 minutes away from Brighton, from the stadium at Falmer. So to us, it's about winning the hearts and minds of those 7 or 8 year olds in the playground who we want them to be wearing a Lewis shirt rather than a Brighton shirt. It's tough, but I think we're getting somewhere. You see the amount of kids we have on match days. It's amazing now.
Brilliant. Both boys and girls?
Boys and girls, yeah, yes. Absolutely.
Fantastic, great stuff. Last opportunity, guys, to ask Stuart, James, or I any questions. Hopefully, I've answered everyone's messages that have come in through the chat, which is good. Lots of real positive comments, Stuart. So thank you very much for that, James. Thank you very much. I think from there, thanks Daniel, very informative. Thanks to all. So thanks Daniel for attending, much appreciated. I think there is probably a really good time to call it an evening. Thank you very much again, Stuart, for your time, sharing your story, and your 10 years of progress, pain, but more importantly, that clear vision you have as a club. Good luck for the weekend, both male and female teams, and obviously your youth section as well, so good luck. Everyone else, thank you very much for attending. Thank you very much for all the hard work you do in grassroots, in your clubs and in your communities. Wish you a lovely week and a good weekend as well for your teams competing this weekend. Fingers crossed the rain doesn't kind of spoil that. Next webinar we'll be looking to host is how do you know you've made it? So defining success at your club. Dates will be shared through the emails that I'll be sending you as well through your County FA social media channels. Apart from that, everyone, thank you very much for your time this evening. Take care and goodbye.
Thank you.